Tim Pool, as you recall, had Laura Loomer on his program not too long ago. And Laura Loomer said some pretty extreme stuff. And Tim had said, at least at some other occasion, that he was on board with the capital punishment for all these, liars and treasonous people in the government. And then the Harris campaign tweeted out saying, Trump operatives are pushing the idea of capital punishment for people who work in the government. And that clip included both Tim Pool and Laura Loomer. Didn't say that Tim Pool was a operative. I mean, necessarily. Laura Loomer, we know, was involved in the debate prep. God knows what it was.
I mean, it's quite clear they're referring to Laura Loomer in that situation because she was, at the time, joyriding around on Trump's plane with him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's definitely an operative. And they didn't say who. But nevertheless, Tim Pool decided to sue Harris. Now, look, Tim already, and this is my assumption. I want to make it clear because I understand that Tim is a little litigious. Tim already probably has lawyers on retainer who deal with stuff like defamation because he's being sued for defamation. And sometimes when you're not that bright, you tell your lawyers, well, if I can get sued for defamation, then maybe I can sue somebody for defamation. And the lawyer might say, like, well, okay, because they're billing more than they've ever billed before.
I'll put it on your tab.
Based upon this brief, I get the sense that this lawyer is like, this is the lawyer. This is the lawyer thinking like, I've hit pay dirt. This ain't happening again for me.
Tim was like, the best defense is a good offense, and the lawyer was like, hell yes.
Oh yes, you know what they say, Tim.
And I charge $200 an hour.
You got. Oh, I got news for you. I think he's getting charging a little bit more than $200 an hour. Is my guess.
Oof.
But because Tim went like I need a lawyer from like New York or L.A. or whatever, and those.
What does Musk use?
Yeah, exactly. They're like $500-$700 an hour. They could be $1,000 an hour. And I'm sure the lawyer said, well, the best way to make money is to spend money. That's the lie that really gets the uninitiated. But let's read a couple of from the complaint filed. This is, I found, rather ironic. Number 40, paragraph 40. Ultimately, the Post accomplished what the Harris campaign set out to do. The Post gave Mr. Pool's opponents, including people he wants to reach and engage, with an excuse to distance themselves from Mr. Pool. They needed an excuse to distance themselves.
People would not understand why people are distancing themselves from that guy unless there was some sort of predicate.
Oh, the way I'm doing it now is because he did an interview with Laura Loomer. I mean, remember what the Post did primarily is just play a clip from his show. Political leaders, and especially elected Democrats, are now less likely to appear on Mr. Pool's show despite his efforts to build bridges for discussion and debate. Has he ever had a single Democratic lawmaker on his show?
Not that I can think of. There's a chance Tulsi showed up at some time.
Not when she was a Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's been doing less and less confrontational stuff recently, Tim, after some unfortunate debates for him where he didn't look that great.
Well, I mean, that was problematic, but he's still not inviting, Democratic politicians on there. I mean, I don't know how you measure that he has no chance of getting him on now when he had no chance of getting him on before.
Yeah.
In this regard, Mr. Pool has put millions of dollars where his mouth is, purchasing high-impact advertising in his native Chicago and New York City's Times Square to raise awareness of his show above the very streets on which he took on corporatism in an effort to reach many of the same people he once considered friends and allies. So I can't figure out if they're talking about he put up these billboards to drive viewers or to get guests.
He put up billboards to take on corporatism. How did he pay for said billboards? Was it from the money that he may have received?
This is an allusion to when he was shooting video during Occupy. Those are the streets.
No,
supposedly.
I get it, but
No, he also advertised Timcast and the Times Square one.
Yes, but the phrase awareness of a show above the very streets on which he took on corporatism in an effort to reach.
understood.
By exploiting.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes,
So
13, 14 years ago.
Past tense.
To counter the effects of the Harris campaign's disinformation, Mr. Poole will have to spend millions of dollars to win an audience with those who now falsely believe he wants a dictatorship that will imprison and execute his political opponents. This is almost as if you think that when someone says something and they read one tweet of it, that they're going to act upon what this guy or person says.
It's almost as if he is implying that.
It's almost like implying like, well, let me just continue to read because I'm starting to get some idea in my head as to like the dynamic of what he's saying from one tweet. What one tweet can do. Can you imagine if you were to repeat over and over, like on Twitter or on your show, like, I don't know, we're on the verge of a civil war, or there's going to be a race war, over and over and over again, what kind of impact that might have. At the same time, paragraph 41, Mr. Poole has had to invest in additional security to fend off those who wish to do him and those he cares about harm, laboring under the false belief that the content creator supports tyranny. Now, what's interesting is that Tim announced there was going to be a lawsuit within 15 minutes of that tweet going up.
Wow.
Right? I mean, do you remember that?
It was very short.
I've contacted my lawyers. Interesting. He must have anticipated that this was going to inspire people to commit violence against him off of one tweet.
Wow.
You can only imagine how inspirational multiple tweets or years of shows might be if that dynamic is true, according to Tim Poole. Mr. Poole's concerns in this regard are not speculative. He and his employees have been victims of swatting. Shortly after the Harris campaign, August 31st, X post, a man showed up at the property owned by Mr. Poole. One of Mr. Poole's employees reported being assaulted by the man. But wait a second.
What's SWAT? What?
This is, see, now here's the deal. If you don't expend money on a really good lawyer, it may make it difficult for you to achieve what you want to achieve in a legal context. When you concede that you and your employees have been victims of swatting, you are conceding that there is a pre-existing problem, and it becomes that much more challenging to show that the offending act is in fact responsible for this. Next week, I'm going to be in Vegas at the tort conference. This, incidentally, is a tortious lawsuit. Tortious act to defame somebody. And one of the things you need to do if you're you need to show damages, and then you need to show a causal connection between what somebody did and what's happening. And the problem is if this is a pre-existing problem that you have, right? Like people are swatting me, or there are people trying to do me harm. How do you point to this one tweet?
The causal connection.
Yeah. Now maybe
Maybe this all started after the tweet.
Yeah, maybe. Well, some of it clearly didn't. One of Mr. Poole's employees reported being assaulted by the man. Upon information and belief, the alleged assailant, and I don't know what this means, upon information and belief, the alleged assailant knew about the Harris campaign's post, which served as inspiration for the unexpected visit. You have to establish that, but you've just basically undercut the fact that, like, well, wait a second, you've got this pre-existing problem. How do you know it's just from this tweet? Mr. Poole is now working to secure round-the-clock security for himself and others shaken by this event. It's going to make it harder to have, like, sushi with the boys.
Working round the clock.
I'm not a lawyer, but this doesn't seem like the most tightly argued couple paragraphs.
Well, I'm also not a lawyer, and I think you're correct. But
Like, what does that have to do with swatting? Like a guy showed up and beat up one of your crew
Well,
members?
he's saying, I mean, ostensibly, the lawyer is saying, like, Tim is a potential victim of this stuff, as proven by the fact that he's been a victim of it before. And the lawyer doesn't seem to understand that that sort of undercuts the causal connection between the tweet and this, if it was on, you had this ongoing problem.
I'm confused as to why the tweet is defamatory in and of itself at all.
It's not.
He's a Trump supporter at this point, right? Or at the
Well-
very least, he was just supporting DeSantis back when I was talking to him back last year. He changed his tune on that, and now he's basically a Trump supporter. So,
Well,
'Cause DeSantis
it's
used AI.
arguing, he's arguing that I didn't agree with Laura Loomer. Now, the tweet never said that he did, although there is evidence that he has, actually, video evidence, which is difficult to refute because you can see Tim's mouth moving and saying that he agrees with Loomer. So,
that's unfortunate for
yeah,
him.
it's unfortunate for him.
This crazy impression that he supports, sort of right-wing tyranny when he regularly has guests on who like make jokes about throwing people out of helicopters and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, we can't talk about that.
Well, he's had to cut off the stream because of some irresponsible rhetoric from some of his other employees.
Because
or
of a
guests.
pattern of that kind of rhetoric.
Yeah, I distinctly recall him being upset, saying, "I can't stop getting people to say we got to kill this person. We can't stop killing people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." So, perhaps it's a problem with the structure of the show, I would say.
9 to 5 writes, I'm a lawyer and you really want to avoid putting, quote, upon information and belief, in your complaint because it means you have no evidence or documentation.
Exactly. Unlike, say, when the Texas shooter posted about Tim's show, which Tim got really upset about when he was confronted with that very fact. Upon information and belief.
That is a hilarious legal sentence.
That is, I love belief. Like,
Is he writing this for
information-
Tim? This is a product for Tim Pool, so they can say like, okay, that's what I'm paying for.
Right.
I mean, I assume it was filed.
But you could just tell him that you filed it, and he would never know.
Or, I mean, it's quite possible Tim was like, no, I just want to be able to put this out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'll get views and that's the way I'll pay for you writing it.
It's like when you have like a crazy aunt or uncle who's like, can you get this conspiracy theory I'm cooking up? Can you get this to X person? I've had that before. Will you cover this on your show? Particularly a family member that's a COVID conspiracy theorist, right? And you just say, yeah, I'm definitely going to tell Sam about that. Don't you worry. That's what the lawyer's doing, essentially. Okay, Tim, I'll definitely file this defamation case for you. Don't worry about it.
And, you know, I'm sure also he's like, I've got a bunch of extra money from this gig I did.
Sweet
for this,
gig.
Yeah, for this tenant media. And so I'm trying to reinvest it. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.